What's up? Gremlin Gargoyle. Gremlin Nino. Hi, guys. Hello. Hi, Sky. Or shall I call you Britches? Britches of Azkaban? Britches? Hi. Hi, Mark. I'm a little earlier today than the stream is saying, so look at me. I'm not even on time. I'm early. And I moved my furniture around so that, well, it's not going to stay like this because it looks like chaos, but I moved my furniture around so that it could be like direct, not me sort of like sitting like this and constantly staring God knows where. Hi, Lighting Dave. Hi, Armin. And hi, Praxis. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Hi, Carolyn. Cindy, do you want to say hello? Do you want to say hello? Is that why you're here? You want to say hello? Are you hiccuping? Are you hiccuping? Is that what's happening? Is it what's happening? Cindy wants to say hi. Also, as per usual, it's so loud outside. Why is it always so loud when I'm doing streams? That's crazy. I'm gonna see if there is like a noise canceling feature on the audio, maybe. Echo cancellation. So stereo has echo. Okay. All right. Well, unfortunately, there isn't a feature like that here, and that's very upsetting. Ah, thank you so much, Dave. Hi, Gap. Thank you. So it's kind of like it's not really a dress. It's sort of like it's like a long shirt. Привіт, привіt. Hi, James. And I really do appreciate that, Dave. Hi, April. Sin. Okay, while we wait for people to join, we're gonna say hello to my little dog pig, who is also, see, another beauty of this setup is that you can see Cindy in the background because she's quite obviously going to be leeching onto me. Hi, Annette. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Joe. Hi, Juju. Oh my gosh, so many people came in right away. Oh, in one go, I got all of these comments. I'm good, Walter. How are you? How are you? Well, Vasil did say that was very cute when Cindy was standing in the window like this, but then he said, I don't like her. So, you know, it was like, it was one little glitch of consciousness, Hi, Theo. I wish Vasil liked Cindy. My life would be so much easier, but he doesn't. Which, I don't know, how can you not like this little dog pig? Hi, Grumpy. Good to hear that you're doing good. Hi, Fabiano. Heroyam Slava, Silver Knight. Heroyam Slava. He also don't seem to know what pumpkin carving is. Yeah, well, he also a minute of bad mouthing Vasil starts now, Cindy. That is not anything for you. A minute of bad mouthing Vasil starts now. He yesterday I bought myself a peppermint syrup for my coffee. And it's strange because I ordered the same bottle as my lavender syrup, and the lavender syrup was like $20, but the peppermint was 14, and I was like, that's so not fair. And Vasil says, well, yeah, because obviously nobody buys peppermint syrup. Ew. And I'm like, well, winter is coming, and a lot of people are buying peppermint syrup to put in their hot chocolate. And he's like, oh my gosh, no one drinks hot chocolate with peppermint syrup. Maybe in America, but nowhere else in the world. And I'm like, well, the UK, the rest of Europe, He's like, well, in Ukraine, nobody does. And I'm like, well, my aunt does. So quite about soon, a lot of people are going to be buying peppermint syrup because it's a very wintry thing. But I digress. So, I don't know if he hears me, but I just wanted him to know that I'm taking a minute to badmouth him. Hi, Solomon. Uliana, oh my gosh. Getting cold for Christmas. Yeah, well, I mean, hey, it's not getting anything for Christmas with the words like that. I guarantee you that. I'm kidding. Starbucks always have peppermint flavor. Yeah, I mean, peppermint is big in the winter. Also, like, peppermint hot chocolate is so good. Has anyone who says peppermint hot chocolate is not good has not tried peppermint hot chocolate. I guarantee you that. Nobody buys it. Why does it cost more? Seems nuts. No, I mean, it costs less than my lavender one, but I also think I just bought from a different buyer on Amazon and I kind of screwed myself over the first time around. Sin. Yes. Also, Cindy just found a toy that makes noises, so, good luck to us. Drink is the only time I ever go there. Makes sense. I mean, to be fair, I usually put peppermint in my hot chocolate. I also have this like Nespresso peppermint coffee that with milk kind of tastes like peppermint hot chocolate, and it's really good. So if you have an espresso machine, they have peppermint coffee flavor in the winter. It's limited, and I really suggest you try it. Yeah, Cindy is adorbs. Thank you, Walter. Okay, well, so interesting news. Apparently, Putin's motorcade yesterday was attacked on its way either from or to the Kremlin, and it was attacked with explosives. And I'm going to pull up this article here because, again, because I would like to sort of go about it more closer to what it actually says than me just retelling you the story. Hi, EB. Hi, Mario. Putin's motorcade attacked. Also, I'm going to discuss a question today that I received in one of my YouTube videos in the comments that I thought was very, very interesting because someone asked me, how can Russians believe that Zelensky is like a Yahtzee and Zelensky is like a cocaine addict and stuff like that because he was popular in Russia too, and he was like a famous actor. Cine, why do you have to do this? Cine, babes, hey, Cine. 1 second, sorry. Cine, come here, please. Cine, до мене, come on. До мене, та, молодець. Good girl. Good girl. Now lay down and please chill out. Please. This is the time where you need to be calm. This is like mommy's working. Sin, do you have to lick my hands right now? Anyway, so I'm going to discuss that because that was a very interesting question. And I actually think that it's important to answer it because you're right. Like, how would they believe it, right? There is a lot going on there, and he was incredibly popular, and there are multiple reasons as to why they believe it. Sydney, why is it that today you decided to be the most incredibly crazy creature that I have ever met in my life while I'm doing a news stream? You were sleeping, you weren't doing anything. Why now? More and more attacks like that. Even Hitler had 14 attempts in his life. None got the job done. Hi, Karine. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's entering like a period of his existence where a lot of people are going to want him gone. And a lot of people are going to attempt to do so. So we'll see how that's gonna play out. Another thing I wanted to note, so I was supposed to take the interview today with the Azov fighter. Now he's in a rehab facility and he's in the middle of the woods, so he does not have good service. There was like the weather today was, as he said, horrible to the extreme. and therefore he had like no internet connection because their service like was really bad. And we rescheduled for tomorrow. If nothing changes, then we're gonna have to do the interview next week when he's back in Kyiv, in the Kyiv like physical therapy rehab facility. But we're gonna try to do it tomorrow. What I am gonna do, because clearly it's gonna take a little longer than I expected, is I will, on Patreon, I will share some of his answers with you. Not all, but like some. I'll share some questions and some answers to them on Patreon early. Hi, Beatrice. And also I will maybe put up like a couple of short videos on TikTok before the video airs. Before the video airs, like a day or so before that, or like a couple of days before that. There is not going to be a lot that you can find out from these short videos because they're just going to be like a pre-build up to the actual video. But if you're interested in some of his real answers, then I'm going to post some on Patreon right after I interview him. Kherson is here. Hi. Привет, Kherson. But so here is what happened to Putin's motorcade, allegedly. And this is reported by Espresso Co. UK. So Espresso is a, Express Co. UK. It's a newspaper. It's not necessarily like a very reliable source, but it is a source, and it's not necessarily unreliable, but it's not like Reuters or Bellingcat, right? So this is not confirmed. There has been no confirmation on this, but this is what's alleged. So allegedly, Vladimir Putin's motorcade was attacked with explosives during a recent journey. Unverified reports from Telegram have claimed, according to the General SVR Telegram channel, purportedly ran by a Kremlin insider, one car blocked the front vehicle in Putin's motorcade, whilst another car drove around the motorcade and dropped an explosive onto the vehicle carrying the Russian president. General SVR explained, on the way to the residence a few kilometers away, the first escort car was blocked by an ambulance. The second car drove around without stopping a sudden obstacle, and while driving around the obstacle, the third car, in which Putin was, a loud bang sounded from the left front wheel, followed by heavy smoke. The report claims that despite explosion, the car carrying Putin managed to reach its destination. However, the investigation into the incident and all information on it is classified. So that's very interesting because that looks like more and more people are trying to cause harm to Putin, which obviously isn't anything that we're surprised about. Well, I mean, I guess in the context of Russia, we could be, because it's not like they necessarily stand up against their dictators or regimes or anything like that. But hi, Norm. Hi, Norm. And obviously, in the context of Russia, it is surprising that they would do something, and we don't know if they did do that. But provided that I think the Kremlin is so quiet about it, I feel like that might be a possibility, because, hey, if that didn't bother them, we would be hearing about it all over the news, right? So so I would say that one of the reasons why this might not be all over the news is because they're hiding it. So yeah, and as Gwena says on TikTok, at least he got the message. For sure. I mean, the message is pretty strong if that did happen. One of the things is, speaking of messages, one of the things that I also wanted to bring up today is yesterday, I actually did a series of tweets about it because I was so frustrated. There were a couple of people that were trying to explain the essence of this to me, but yesterday, Serhiy Kislitsa, one of Ukrainian deputies, posted a photo. I will go onto his page and I will read you what happened under his specific account. So, as you might know, Amnesty International has been sending people envelopes asking them for donations for a protester in Russia who is an artist who is now facing 10 years in jail because she had spoken out against the war in Ukraine. And this is the drawing they're using on this envelope, so you can see it better. This is a Russian person hugging a Ukrainian person. Ciao, Gianmarco, come vai? This is a Russian person hugging a Ukrainian person. Now, I don't think I need to explain. I thought that I wouldn't need to explain how that is wrong to choose as a message. but I guess I do. So imagine that this was 1942 and Israel existed. Imagine this would be a swastika flag hugging an Israeli flag. Imagine this would be an image of Hitler hugging a Jew. Imagine this would be an image of Hitler hugging a Pole while Holocaust is going on. Imagine this would be an image of a German flag hugging a Polish flag. How would that make you feel? It's inappropriate, right? Incredibly inappropriate, and it shouldn't be happening. Same here, because this image perpetuates the idea of brotherly nations, even if the intent was not that. This is what it looks like. So Serhii Kaslitsa posted it and said, the diamond drills used by Amnesty to go lower than the lowest mercilessly drill holes in every decent heart by printing this kind of immoral fundraising propaganda. Think twice before you decide where your money goes. Enough diamonds. So and the thing on the envelope says, discover the huge price Sasha is paying for a small-scale protest. So I understand that they're trying to help a Russian who was protesting against the war in Ukraine. First of all, yes, good on her, but that also the huge price Sasha is paying for a small-scale protest. Let me paraphrase this, because that is not what the truth of the matter is. Discover the huge price Sasha is paying for the complacency of her and her fellow citizens that they have expressed, or rather not expressed, for centuries now, that led to this being reality. There are tons of people under this post basically saying that Ukrainian people should not be upset about this drawing, because this is a drawing from Sasha herself, and it was a drawing that she did to the Russian audience, saying, hey, let's stop the war, hug Ukrainians, we're friends. Two problems here. One, it doesn't matter what the Russian message was there. What matters is that Amnesty International knows better than to use this. They're a huge company, fully understanding the impact of words and actions. It doesn't matter what her messaging behind it was. It is a message that hurts Ukrainians incredibly. And yet again, you're hurting millions of Ukrainians by a product of Russia. Good job. We're already being hurt every day of our lives. We do not need this. Second of all of the people advocating for why this is not a problem, are you Ukrainian? No, you do not get to have an opinion on this, because you're not the victim of this. This doesn't by any means affect you. Not your place. If Ukrainian people are telling you this is inappropriate, this is a slap in the face, and this is hurting them, then you listen. Because it doesn't matter what the intention was. The outcome is what matters in this situation. And that is the outcome. So let me explain here. There were a couple of tweets that I have received that actually tagged me under that post that I shared on my Instagram and obviously on my Twitter, because I tweeted back at people, right? But I wanted to read them because I think these tweets and the perception of people who are foreigners is important, and also the answers to those tweets are also important, because they encompass my understanding of what's happening here. So here is a photo of a little boy. It says, in case you think the horror Russia's inflicting on Ukraine is new, I present Mykola. Russia invaded eastern Ukraine in 2014. In 2016, Mykola stepped on a grenade. He lost both legs, right arm, and suffered serious internal injuries and facial cranial trauma. And his 4-year-old brother died in front of him. So my answer to this is, you want me to hug Russians for this, Amnesty? You're a disgrace. Calling yourself a humanitarian organization while denying genocide, promoting complacency with it, and offering the victim to hug their murderer for the whole world to see. Defund Amnesty. Let me guess, the Sasha on the envelope is a Russian who protested against Putin, and she's paying a huge price. Look at the child above. First of all, for anybody who is saying that Russians are paying a huge price for protesting, no. Russians are paying a huge price for the fact that they didn't do anything for centuries. And this government, this regime, and the fact that they barely have any freedom of speech is a direct consequence of their own actions. So please stop putting it on Ukrainians like we have to be grateful for people for protesting against a genocide that they have allowed, perpetuated, and brought upon us yet again. That is the least they can do. That is the right thing to do. You can't command people on doing the bare minimum. And the fact that they go to jail while expressing their opinion is not a heroic thing. It's not like them protesting is a heroic thing. They created this environment. They were all super happy with the invasion of Donbass. They were all super happy with the invasion of Crimea. No one was saying anything. Up until 2022, no one was saying anything. Everyone was cheering it on. And that's how they ended up exactly where they ended up. So no. Here is another person who said, of course, Ukrainians are thankful for Russians sacrificing their lives and safety by protesting and facing jail and torture to defend Ukraine. Defend Ukraine. No. You're trying to reverse your mistakes, not defend Ukraine. A person responds, you're insane to think Ukrainians are thankful to Russians in any way, shape, or form. This person responds, you're consumed by hate and not thinking clearly and apparently refuse to see the obvious, which all Ukrainians understand. The Russians who protested for Ukraine and made sacrifices, blah, blah, blah. Here is my response, which I'm reading you this because I just want you to know that this is important. And because everything I say in these tweets is very, very important to understand how Ukrainians feel and why this whole Russians make a huge sacrifice narrative is damaging and disgraceful. We are the Russian sacrifice, sir. They have sacrificed us for centuries. It's disgusting, disgraceful, and unacceptable. They get to be alive while we are dying, and protesting against a genocide caused by their complacency is the least they could do. I'm not grateful for their complacency. I'm not grateful that they didn't do a single thing for 8 years while our people were tortured in Donetsk. I'm not grateful that they enjoyed vacations in Crimea while Tatars were prosecuted and murdered for advocacy against Russia. I'm sure as hell not grateful that they allowed it to get this bad that their government would be genociding us yet again. Yeah, forgot Holodomor, didn't you? Or didn't care to know? You want to help them? Do it. Do not advocate for an illustration promoting complacency with a genocide, normalizing it and praising the few that had enough decency to speak against it. You are not Ukrainian. Respectfully, shut up. Don't tell a Ukrainian person how to feel. Same way as you wouldn't tell a Jew how to feel about the few good Germans. Not your place. Here is another person who later turned out to be a good Russian, who wrote another thing to me, explaining to me after I had written, had responded to me, explaining to me what this illustration meant, as if I didn't know, as if it makes something any better. But anyways, here's their response. It's a painting by Sasha Skochilenko, an artist that faces 10 years in prison now for this. It was targeted at Russians, aka Ukraine is a friend, we should stop the war. And the reaction from Ukrainians is, we'll never be friends again. Many people miss out the context about Sasha. Now I have a response to that too, obviously. We will never be friends again, for obvious reasons. Centuries of abuse and amnesty should know better than pick that painting. It reinforces the idea of brotherly nations, which is a disgrace and a slap in the face to Ukrainians. Forced friendship. As to the painter, 1, she gets to live in prison, but live. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians don't. 2, her own nation should stand up for her, not Ukrainians. We stand up for our people. Her sentence is a product of her and her people's complacency. And that sentence shouldn't make it okay to put that painting out into the world and hurt many Ukrainians by another product of Russia. We are already being hurt. Stop justifying horrifying actions on behalf of a large enterprise that knows better. This is part of the tweets. I have some that I did not post that I did not post on Instagram yet. Because this person continuously kept tweeting back at me. And after a while, it had turned out they're Russian. This campaign is totally useless even for Sasha. Amnesty does not help Russians protesting. OVD info does. Still, many people miss out the context about the painting and the artist, so I just wanted them to know. So let me remind you that this context about the good Russian was on a post of a Ukrainian minister, Serhiy Kislitsa, talking about why this painting is bad, right? So it's yet another time a Russian is advocating for a Russian on something that doesn't have to do with Russians, it has to do with Ukraine, right? So this is my response to it. Advocating for a Russian artist on a page of a Ukrainian politician who is actively fighting the Russian invasion is really not the place nor the time. This context invokes compassion for the artist and distraction from the point. Why not? They're both on one side, against Putin and against war. The picture may not be the best choice for the envelope, and Amnesty not the best organization to help anyone. Still, I wanted people to know the context about Sasha. I said, we are not one nation. We are not one people. We're not on one side of the barricade. Putin is not the one looting, killing, assaying, torturing Ukrainians. It's Russians in our country. There is no we, there is us, Ukrainians. Our problem is Russia and Russians. Not because we are not on one side. Sorry. There is not because we're not on one side, and that's the problem. Russia and various leaders and people for centuries have been humiliating us, unaliving us, and appropriating our culture, calling us derogatory slurs they made specifically for us. We are against Russia in our space, land, and sight. And then there is them, Russians, and their problems are Putin and whatever else it may be. We are not against the war, sir. We're fighting for survival. We have no choice. Russians can be against the war. They have that choice. Now, how is this so hard to grasp? It's very funny to me when people say you're on one side against the war and against Putin. We're not against Putin. We are against Russia. Ever having anything, incredibly anything to do with us. It's not Putin who started Holodomor. It's not Putin who made up derogatory slurs. It's not Putin who said, you know what? I will read you this stuff. We're not this. We don't have the same goals here. They have their goals with their government in Russia. Our goal is Russia out of our sight, heart, and mind. That is a different goal. And we're not against the war. It's so funny to me when people say, well, Ukrainians and Russians are both against the war. I'm sorry. Against the war? Oh, what else could we be? When we are being killed, what else could we be? We're not against the war. Saying Ukrainians are against the war is sort of like making it sound like, we are a party to this conflict, and we are just kind of like, we can decide, whose side to be on. We're being murdered as a nation. We're not against the war. We're quite literally against our own genocide and fighting for survival. We're not over here advocating for something, the war in Ukraine needs to stop, it's bad. Our people are dying in the battlefield against the war. So this person says, for sure, we're not one nation. We used to be friendly neighbors, visiting relatives in Ukraine, spending time with friends. This war is a shame to Russia. So this war is a shame to Russia because everything about this war comes back and revolves around Russia, right? This war is not a genocide of Ukrainians. This war is not an annihilation of peaceful citizens. This war is not one of the worst things that had happened to Ukraine in history. This war is not a shame because so many Ukrainians are dying. This war is a shame to Russia. See, you think we were friendly. We think you abused us. Every single government, every single joke about our language, every single chachlushka joke, every single time our poets and artists were named famous Russians, while born, raised, and educated in Ukraine. Every same thing in reference to where are you from. Things you don't even notice as an everyday person. Russia is a colonizer, and we are people not willing to be colonized. And we've paid a high price for it. So please respect our boundary and try to understand why this post is not about context for Sasha and what people get wrong about her. This post is about context for Roman Ratushny, Ukrainian activist, 22 years old, who signed up for the military and was killed in the battle near Izum. Not this time, but when Russians took it. Why this post is about context for Denis Prokopenko, the captain of the heroic Azov regiment that held the defense of besieged Mariupol, who is now captive and most likely tortured by Russia. Unknown soldier who was mutilated by a Russian soldier. Context for him, and why this illustration should not be promoted as context for Sasha. So here is the thing. It's equally as wrong for Amnesty to advertise that illustration while trying to help a Russian. They want to help a Russian protesting? Go ahead. Priorities. You want to use an illustration that shows the two nations hugging to promote us to embrace our abuser? Don't do that, and don't stand up for that. 1. 2. Yet another time, a Russian person, instead of speaking out against this illustration, went onto the post of a Ukrainian official about how damaging this illustration is and spoke out about Sasha and the context. You want to advocate for your artist, Sasha? You go advocate for her in your space. You go create movements, because Russian people should be standing up for Sasha, and Russian people should be doing something about it, not us. We have nothing to do with Sasha. Frankly, Sasha doesn't matter to us. And on that post, it doesn't matter what the context about Sasha is. The context that matters is the context in which Roman Ratushny died from the Russian invasion, and posting a photo or an illustration of a Ukrainian hugging a Russian is wrong. The context is in which Denis Prokopenko, the captain of the heroic Azov regiment, is captured and tortured, and posting a drawing of a Ukrainian hugging a Russian is wrong. A context in which an unnamed soldier was mutilated, and posting a drawing in which a Ukrainian is hugging a Russian is wrong. A context in which a 4-year-old boy had to witness the death of his brother while stepping on a mine, losing both of his legs and an arm, and posting an image of a Ukrainian hugging a Russian is wrong. When will Russians understand that it's not about them, and they don't get to come into our space continuously and make it about them? It is not a huge sacrifice that Russians are making and a huge price they're paying for standing up for Ukraine. It is a huge price they're paying for never standing up for themselves and for allowing it to get this bad. Russia and Ukraine are not the same. Please stop using a collective we when you talk about us. Whatever happens in Russia to Russians who are doing the bare minimum of speaking out against an atrocity that they're committing is not something that should be by any means tied to us. They're not going to jail because they stood up for Ukraine. They're going to jail because they didn't stand up for Ukraine, because they didn't stand up for Georgia, because they didn't stand up for Chechnya, because they didn't stand up for Moldova, because they didn't stand up for a single republic. They're going to jail because they were silent. They were going to jail because they liked it. They were going to jail because there was no reason for them to speak out when it benefited them. They're going to jail because they created this regime. They created this atmosphere, and they created their current today with no freedom of speech and a dictatorship. So when Russians are going to jail for protesting, it is not because they stood up for Ukraine. It is because they did not. Are we clear on that? And let me make it incredibly clear. Russians are not making a sacrifice by standing up for us. We are the sacrifice Russians have been making this entire time. And that's something that I want everybody to hear and understand. And another thing is, stop telling Ukrainians what Russians are doing and how to feel about it. We know what they're doing and not doing. We know how we feel about it. And it's time you listen to Ukrainians and how Ukrainians feel about what Russians have and have not done. Because you are learning about this for the first time in the last 6 to 7 months. We have been generationally subjected to the trauma of being next to and associated with Russia. We have generationally been subjected to the trauma of Russians not standing up for anybody. We have been generationally subjected to the misleading statement of brotherly nations. And everyone in the world seems to think that it's appropriate to tell us, but you are brothers, but you are friends, but you are brotherly nations. No, we're not brothers, we're not friends. Russia abused us. We were abused. Russia said we were friends. Russia took advantage of us. Russia continuously kept taking advantage of us. The more we didn't let it, the more lives were lost. That is not friendship. That is not family. That is an abusive, toxic relationship. Are we clear on that? Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding. And thank you for choosing to not tell Ukrainians how to feel about something that hurts them, no matter the intention. If you didn't intend to hurt somebody but still did, you still hurt them, even though you didn't intend to. And also, Amnesty International as a gigantic organization knows better than to do that. Knows much better, because they know exactly what kind of idea they will be promoting by that illustration. Okay. So, in the beginning of this stream, I also was saying that there was a very interesting question that I received on YouTube from one of you guys, and I wanted to answer it for you because I think that it was very interesting And I think that it was very, very, very important because I think that there is a lack of context to this. And I thought that the person who asked the question phrased it very, very, very well. And so I would really like, I don't understand why my YouTube does not show me when all of the comments. It just shows me random comments and random notifications, but doesn't show me every one of them. So I have to go under each video and then find the specific video I was looking for. So bear with me for a second while I find that video. I think it was under the Q&A, potentially, because I remember there were quite a few comments. And I was going through my videos yesterday trying to see if someone had asked something so I could answer it. So maybe not these. Also, I don't, one second. I'm really sorry. But it's just needs to be found, and it's hard to find it because obviously, again, YouTube doesn't notify me of anything. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to read you the whole question. It is long. So, oh, hi, Jenny. Okay. Hi, Yulia. I have a question that is more characters than TikTok allows. I hope you can answer. So, Zelensky, his shows, movies, etc. Some I know toured in Russia in the early days I read. Where are they broadcast in Russia? Were any of his shows, movies seen by Russians on their cinema TV screens? I only ask because I just find it so baffling and mind-boggling that someone, an actor, a funny guy who makes you laugh, director, writer, etc., is clearly popular and well-known. Some would say they grew up with him on their TV screens. It's not like he was an overnight success. If this is the case with Russia and they also experienced him on their screens for many years, how can they suddenly turn and accept or believe that this actor, comedian, is suddenly a Yahtzee, a coke addict, and running a Yahtzee regime? I just don't understand. If Jim Carrey or Dustin Hoffman or Tom Hanks ran for president of the USA and was elected and my prime minister told the nation that any of these were a Yahtzee, I'm sorry, but we would laugh in their face and tell them that they need their head checked. It's not like Zelensky was president for years and years, so Putin had the chance of brainwashing for years and years and suddenly decided to invade. He's been president since 2019, right? It's too outrageous to suddenly be told that kind of garbage and instantly believe it to be true. Hi, Christina. Please help me understand. It's so confusing, and I understand that they believe everything they're told. But, as I said before, it's not like he was a complete stranger to them in 2019. Unless, of course, he wasn't known in Russia at all. I hope you can shed some light on this for me so I can understand this madness. Thanks, Lori. Okay. So let me shed some light on that. First of all, Zelensky was one of the most popular actors and comedians in Russia. Zelensky was a huge success in Russia. Zelensky was a TV host on a lot of like Christmas shows, New Year shows, holiday shows, national holiday shows. He was big. He was as big as one can get. He was one of the most popular comedians. He was super well known. Everybody knew who Volodymyr Zelensky is. Well, Vladimir Zelensky in their pronunciation, but everybody knew him. He was like invited to all of the Emmy, Grammy, wannabes in Russia. He was the bee's knees, as they say. He was he was the protagonist of a bunch of incredibly popular movies. We Have Sex in the City. Russia had Love in the City. It was a trilogy. Those were incredibly popular movies, and he was one of the protagonists. He was incredibly beloved. In 2014, Zelensky started donating all of his money made in Russia to ATO, which was the army that was fighting the Russian invasion in Donbass. At that point, the Russian authorities approached him and quite literally told him that he either stops that or else. He decided that he wasn't going to stop donating to his country and chose or else. severed all of the ties with Russia, all of business relations with Russia, took all of his money out of Russia and stopped any kind of connection to Russia and moved back to Ukraine full time. Before that, he was living between Kyiv and Moscow. At that point, Russia opened a criminal case against him. Typical. I don't know what the criminal charges are, but probably some sort of fraud, whatever. When Zelensky ran for president and he got elected, actually, all of the Russian elites and actors were joking, oh, now Ukraine's in our pocket because Zelensky is our guy. So they referred to him as their guy, which he clearly wasn't. So everybody in Russia was rejoicing when he became president, okay? Only to find out that he wasn't their guy at all. Now, propaganda against Zelensky in Russia started pretty much with that. So it wasn't like an overnight thing, okay? Zelensky was quite unloved between 2019 and 2022. The Kremlin did their fair share of, Zelensky is a cocaine addict, Zelensky, and like some basically doctored videos of him doing coke during his like movie days and whatever. And all of this stuff. So they did their best in order to create that image. Thank you so much, Rena. Or Nina. Nina, hi. Oh my gosh, I thought it was Rena, but hi, Nina. Hi, Lady Bubbly. So basically that was something they did very consciously. Now, I know that it's hard to understand how Russians just decided, how Russians just decided one day that Zelensky is a coke addict and a Yahtzee and stuff like that, and it's unbelievable to believe that they bought it, right? But let me give you an even bigger WTF. So there were no Yahtzees, no Banderovites, no crazy nationalists, no incredible, none of these things were going on up until 2014, right? The second that Ukraine overthrows a pro-Russian president, the next day, within a month, there is suddenly now Yahtzees in Ukraine, Banderovites in Ukraine, Russian language has been, oppressed in Ukraine, Russians have been murdered in Ukraine. Suddenly, there is all of this crazy narrative, this entire crazy narrative about all of these Yahtzees and Banderovites in Ukraine the second that we overthrew a pro-Russian president. Where were all of those people before that? What, did they just suddenly appear overnight? Like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of like Yahtzees and Banderovites just appeared in Ukraine overnight? And before that, we didn't have them at all? And Russians bought it. Russians bought it. We call that zombie box, and zombie box is the Russian TV. And Russians are incredibly good at their propaganda because it's not like right now it's very obvious and where most of us are informed, right? But it wasn't always this botched and always this obvious. They did a good job on it. In fact, yesterday a report came out from a senior U.S. official stating that Russia has spent, from what they could trace, $300 million to influence elections worldwide in 20 countries. And they were going to send hundreds and hundreds of millions more, but couldn't. And they would spend that money in order to favor certain parties and undermine democracy. So Russians are very good at what they're doing, and they're very good at influencing opinions, right? And we see a spike of far-right leadership worldwide, a spike of popularity of far-right leadership worldwide. Not uncanny. Someone says, I don't believe in that honestly. Well, I do, and I will explain to you why. I think that that's highly likely. I'm not saying that happened. I said that a report came out. But I'm very inclined to believe that that's true because, first of all, there are a lot of pages on Twitter, on Facebook that appeared in 2014 that were advocating for MAGA. Those pages were pretending to be Americans who were talking about all all of the issues in America and why Donald Trump is going to solve them. They were kind of like trying to cause discourse between left and right. They were very avid like MAGA supporters, and they were basically stirring shit up, right? Recently,
I don't know how to respond to that.
recently, a lot of people have been posting screenshots, a lot of journalists who followed these MAGA pages because they're investigative journalists. Hi, Mariana, thank you so much. Who have been following these MAGA pages for a while now because they're investigative journalists and they're very interested in how that culture like spreads so much throughout the internet. And those MAGA pages have changed into Russian pages. So now they're promoting Russian propaganda and spreading the Russian world and spreading all of this stuff, right? How come? Because those pages originally were created by Russian bots. And they were specifically created with a purpose, aiming to create a specific scenario and aiming to favor a specific party. In this case, that was Donald Trump's party. There are numerous documentaries that explore the idea of Russian bots participating in 2016 election in order to influence the outcome of the election. Sorry, Freudian slip. In order to influence the outcome of the election. There is an incredible documentary about that on, I want to say HBO It's called, it was something about Kremlin, but it was about the 2016 election and how Russian bots participated in that election and in the outcome of that election and in the information space of that election and how these accounts were created. And they did an incredible job investigating all of it. And at that point, I wasn't watching it because I wanted to have a confirmation bias or something like that. I was watching it because I was curious about Russian troll farms as a creator, right? So for me, it wasn't even about the 2016 election. I couldn't care less at that point. Like that just wasn't, not that I couldn't care less, but that just wasn't the point with which I was watching it. I was trying to watch it because I wanted to know how Russian troll farms function. And within that, actually, I was like, wow, they make a very, very valid point. And they show you all of these accounts and how they turned from MAGA trolls to Russian trolls and all of this stuff. It's incredible. I would really, really suggest, you know what, I'm going to look it up. I'm going to tell you what it's called. Documentary here. Documentary about Russian trolls. HBO. I believe it was HBO. Agents of Chaos. The documentary is called Agents of Chaos. Yes, it was incredible, and I highly recommend that you watch it. I'm going to play you, I'm going to go on YouTube, and I'm going to find a trailer to that documentary, and I want to show it to you. So if you want to, you're going to be able to hear it on TikTok, but you're not going to be able to see it. But you are going to be able to hear and see it on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So if you'd like to see the trailer and not just hear it, please migrate. Agents of Chaos. Trailer. HBO. Okay, one sec. Okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. Wait. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so what's up? Microphone, screen recording, Zoom. Yeah. Okay, that should be fine. So let me do Chrome tab and I will do Agents of Chaos, share, and I will play it.
In 2016, our sovereignty was violated by a foreign power which found a way to interfere in our democratic process. We faced an attack of a new kind. the Russians hacked democracy.
I've been trying for years to figure out what happened. If the U.S. system depends on trust in democratic institutions, what benefits if Americans lose that trust?
Are we doing everything we can to make sure that Americans will decide who is running this country?
In 2016 was a triggering circus of election meddling. Russian trolls have been busy making mischief on the internet.
They were using fake accounts, fake organizations, and finally, fake local media.
Russian intelligence hacking the DNC.
They were not hacking the Trump campaign.
The alleged collusion.
Let's instead use the word seduction.
You have Russia saying we want to help you, and you have Don Jr. saying love it.
But who Russia preferred Trump? Because Trump said that he preferred Russians.
Russia was not pro-Trump. They were anti-America.
Russian interference only worked because America was a vulnerable target.
The trolls were designing conflict online. They're not injecting anything that wasn't already there.
They were getting direction about how to target social media from people in the Trump orbit. These allegations are just absolutely preposterous.
Everyone wants to create a huge conspiracy. Give me a break.
It was all bullshit.
For some politicians, in Russia and America, chaos isn't something to fear. It's just part of the game. It doesn't matter how you play or who you play with. As long as you wind up on top, who cares if the whole motherfucking system burns to the ground?
Is Russia attempting to influence the 2020 election?
По секрету скажу. Да, обязательно будем это делать.
I personally watched it because they interviewed a plethora, not plethora, but a couple of people who were literally Russian bots. That was their job, and they used to be Russian bots, and they spoke out. And I was very curious as to what they were saying, because I wanted to, like, they were talking about how the processes behind these bot farms worked, what their assignments were like, and I was watching it literally because I wanted to know how it worked and how to identify trolls on my own profile, right? Because it doesn't matter whether they're talking about the 2016 election or whether they're talking about the crisis in Ukraine. It would be still the same scenario and the same scheme kind of, right? And the same plot line. So like it would be easier to identify trolls. And so that's why I watched it. But then when I finished watching it, I was like, wait, actually, they have a point. Like, this is crazy, right? So this is a very interesting documentary. I would suggest you watch it if you're interested. Also, it will give you a very, 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 very big insight into how Russian troll farms work, what they're trying to do, and how they operate. So yeah, so it's just a very interesting bit, and that will also help you recognize Russian trolls better, you know, because one of the things is, like, I notice sometimes in my comments, like, I respond to Russian bots very often because there's always going to be an American, a real person, who's going to read their statement, and it's going to imprint in their mind, and they're going to contemplate, right? And I wouldn't want that to happen, because that's basically how people start getting misinformed, and that's how propaganda spreads. You don't have to necessarily believe them. You don't have to necessarily, like, you can even know they're a troll, right? But if they're saying something right with a correct tone, they plant a seed in your head, and that seed stays. So that's why I respond to Russian bots, because I want to basically give facts as to why what they're saying is not right. But I see a lot of people in my comments on TikTok, like sometimes on Twitter even, arguing with Russian trolls as if they think they're a real person. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for knowing what you're talking about. That's awesome. But also, you are arguing with a bot. It is paid to tell you things. It is paid to get you agitated. It is paid to get you upset. It is paid to get you thinking. It is paid to turn some gears in your brain, right? So there is no winning that argument. No matter what you say to them, they're paid. So even if you are being reasonable, even if you're reasoning with them, even if what you're saying makes sense, it is not going to change anything. It is just going to get you heated. So one of the things that I suggest to do actually is, if you see Russian trolls, if you see someone clearly who is like someone who is clearly, they're a real person, they're just called bots because they have assignments and they all have like a script they have to follow. But if you see someone who is clearly a Russian troll, don't argue them. I would say, make fun of them. Make fun of them. Say something ridiculous. Tell them like jokes. They're saying like, oh, there are like radioactive pigeons in Ukraine. Be like, oh yeah, and crazy mutant ninja turtles came alive and have joined the Ukrainian army. Have you not heard? So here is the thing. The way to fight them is not to engage with them that way. One of the things that's good for Ukrainian creators in terms of Russian bots is that they boost engagement because they comment a lot, right? But here is the thing. Arguing with them quite genuinely isn't going to result in anything other than you getting heated up. Making fun of them still brings Ukrainian creators engagement. They will still be answering. They will still be telling you that you're an idiot. They will still be engaging with you. But instead of you getting heated, getting annoyed, getting passionate, getting upset, you will be over here having a free comedy show ticket, where you are the comedian and you are in the front row at the same time. And all of us can also partake. So that's a thing. And don't engage with Russian trolls. Usually the characteristic of a Russian troll is like they try to pick some like either overly complicated American name or something that would like scream American patriotism, or they have like a very complicated French name or a very complicated Spanish name. Usually when they say something, like let's say I say Germany is suffering a financial crisis, they will be like, well, no, they don't. And they will go with like blah, blah, blah. And then next comment will be, I'm German, by the way. If I say something about Serbia, they'll be like, oh, I'm Serbian, by the way. If I say something about Ukraine, they'll be like, oh, I'm Ukrainian, by the way. So they will like try to identify themselves as like the person from that country. They usually have like 50 followers and follow 1,000 people. If their proportion of like if they have like 50 followers and they follow 1,000 people, bot. Usually don't have a profile picture, or if they do, it's something like your average American man. Yeah, but basically, yes, this is how you identify a Russian troll. Also, someone who says something that completely doesn't make any sense and it doesn't. It doesn't. And a quick Google search will tell you it doesn't. But so yes, basically, if you want to help Ukrainian creators by engaging with Russian trolls and boost their algorithms, do that. Just make fun of them. Also, if you want to help Ukrainian creators, apparently TikTok has now changed their algorithm. I don't know how true this is, but saving the videos, like putting it into your favorites, really, really helps push the videos forward. Also, commenting things that pertain to the video also helps a lot. So TikTok is adopting sort of like a YouTube model where your captions to the video are very important, as are your tags on the video now. And so are your comments, because AI reads them to sort of know which audience to push it to. So let's say if I'm talking about like Russian invasion of something, comment Russia on it. So like, don't say, yeah, they are bad. Say, yes, Russia is bad, or something like that. Or basically like, if you want this video to go further, saving it and like commenting keywords is helpful. Anyways, without further ado, let me repeat one last thing before I jump into the news. I was supposed to take an interview from the Azov fighter today. who was a defender of Mariupol and a defender of Azovstal. And I was supposed to do the interview with him today. He did reach out to me in the morning, and he did say that he has no service. So we rescheduled the interview for tomorrow. If he's going to have persistent issues with service tomorrow, then we are going to do it next week. But in either case, because this video is getting a little bit delayed, I am going to share some of his answers from tomorrow's interview on Patreon. Not too much, because obviously I would like you to watch the whole video, and I would like you to hear the answers from him personally, not just like text on the screen. But if you are not a member of Patreon, I have a Patreon. It's in my about on YouTube. It's in my link in bio on Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. And there are different subscription levels. The smallest one is $10 a month, and it does go a long way, because you help me bring information to you, and you help me stay afloat while I do so, as it is now my full-time job. And none of my channels are really monetized. So there is that. There is no pressure to do so, but on Patreon, which is Spy News Network INTL, or Spy News Network International, I do now share a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and I do give you a lot of the control over the channel, basically, because you get to vote for what the next topic of the YouTube video is going to be, who I should interview and stuff like that. And after I speak to the Azov fighter, I'm actually going to see if he could put me in touch with other defenders of Azovstal and Mariupol. And I'm going to give you options because, well, you know, they're different guys. I'll give you short stories about them, hopefully, and we will choose who you want to hear from next. So that is that. Okay. Okay. Without further ado, because ado was a lot. Without further ado, I am going to start the news. And there is a lot that came out since yesterday. So the border guards, I talked about it earlier in the stream, Avenging Pineapple. So Avenging Pineapple on Twitch is asking about when was Putin's motorcade attacked and what happened. I talked about it a little earlier in the stream, and so I would say that if you missed it, you can just rewatch the stream from the very beginning, and I do talk about it in detail from what we know so far. But I did spend quite a while talking about it, and I feel like everybody who has heard about it at this point is not going to want to hear about it again. But if someone is on Twitch and would like to comment to let you know, please, you're welcome to do so. And Zelensky interview while Solomon, I would love to do that, but I don't think I'm that big of a fish yet. Heroyam Slava. So anyways, here is a video that the border guards showed from the liberated Vovchansk and Kharkiv region. Vovchansk is on the border with Russia, and this was the village that has been liberated from Russia that basically liberated the Kharkiv region. That was the last drop in liberating the Kharkiv region. This is going to be a video-heavy information day because there is a lot of videos coming out from liberated cities. So brace yourself. We're going to see a lot of video material today. Tim Stead, aka Moth, was awarded with the Ukrainian Medal of Honor yesterday. His medal is a representation of sacrifice and deeds many will never know.
How does it feel to get the Ukrainian Medal of Honor, Tim? A little overwhelmed.
Tim is in the Foreign Legion.
And Tim, aka Moth.
Moth is his call name. And he got a Presidential Medal of Honor for his service from Zelensky. MRAP International Max Pro. This is not Russian scrap metal from the 70s. So unlike Russians, this is what Ukrainians drive on the front lines. Danon, 1 second. I'm actually going to show you a comment and read it because it just made me laugh a little bit. So basically, Danon over here on YouTube says, he stood at the top of the ladder. That's dangerous, referring to the soldier who was like ripping off the Russian propaganda poster and revealing a poster that was a billboard that was there before. And it's like, this made me laugh so much because that's dangerous. Out of everything the Ukrainian military has been doing in the front line in Kharkiv, on the front lines in Kharkiv, I feel like standing at the top of the ladder is the least dangerous thing they've done. But that just made me laugh. Like, I know it's such a, like, it's nothing. I'm not like saying anything bad to you. It's just like that made me giggle a little bit. Kherson region liberated Vysokopilya. Vysokopilya was one of the big cities liberated in Kherson and one of the first cities we heard about that was a big, big victory for Ukraine in the Kherson counteroffensive. Take a look. Bombi on YouTube is saying that dude that changed the flag on that tower in the wind with no harness, that took a set. Well, actually, it's interesting because I think, you know, it's always very interesting to see a perspective of somebody who's not Ukrainian on these things, because I think we've seen so many of them as Ukrainians, as in like we see them changing these flags and we're so used to them being these, you know, invincible, incredible men and women, that I think that looking at them changing the flag without a harness on top of a tower is like, you know, just every day, like a normal day in Ukraine. So yeah, you're right. Actually, I didn't even think about it because just a normal day in Ukraine. So we just destroyed tanks of the invaders on the eastern counteroffensive. Yes, I do like pizza. And for everybody who's about to, I think I'm going to get unfollowed for this. I like pineapples on my pizza because I like a combination of sweet and savory. And I know Italians will go after me with this, and I understand. But here's the thing. I consider Italian pizza, and then I consider American pizza a type of savory pie. Okay, so that's a very different thing for me. I would never put a pineapple on Italian pizza. But then also, Italians are the people who eat prosciutto e melone, which is prosciutto and a melon. So you can't really judge pineapples on pizza. Hey guys on Twitch, moderators, could you please remove Kirill, who is saying that Zelensky's motorcade has been successfully attacked? I know that you would want that to be true, but reality is that any motorcade that could have been attacked is Putin's, but we don't have confirmation on that. And unfortunately, it was not super successful. Teachers in seized Mariupol tell first graders that the city is part of the Russian Federation. Mariupol, the seized, besieged, destroyed, and leveled to the ground Mariupol. And they assign them to study the Russian anthem at home, said Petro Andrushenko, advisor to the mayor of Mariupol. Here are the books that kids in Mariupol are receiving from Russians. That basically talk about how Mariupol is Russia. Talk about how Russia is a giant country of the world, is the biggest country in the world. It is our motherland. A lot of different nationalities are populating Russia. Russians, Tatars, Jews, Komi, Maris, Bashkirs, Karelians, Udmurts, Buryats, Avars, Ossetians, Chechens, Chukchas, Yakuts, Nens, and others. The capital of Russia is the beautiful city of Moscow. And here is this basically shows the Russian flag and symbol, and it says, "Have you ever heard the anthem of Russia? How does it make you feel?" I don't know. The kids probably traumatized because they have to hear that anthem in their schools every freaking day and learn it, while that's the anthem with which the Russian soldiers were coming into Mariupol and quite literally killing their families. So yeah, probably traumatized. Traumatized is how they feel. So this is a video of what Izum looked like after the arrival of Russian military. And I kind of want to show it to you on YouTube, full screen. So let me do that. I'm going to send it to myself. You guys know, because I'm not a professional newscaster. Sometimes I have technical difficulties. I need to have a second before I can show you something full screen because it needs to arrive to me first. But let me do this. I'm going to try and show you this on TikTok as full screen as possible as well. But for that, I need a second because I need to adjust things. And I'm going to, just in case, mirror my video so you guys, if there is something that is being said, so you can see it. Okay, so I am going to share the video now. I don't know why I'm like singing this. Oh, another thing that I always forget to do is decrease the volume on the iPad. Oh my gosh. What do you want, Siri? I don't need you. Oh my god. Why are you like this? Thank you. Siri is like, you rang? And I'm like, no, I did not. And Siri is like, no, you did. You rang. I know you rang.
Оце больниця у нас. А це цією ночью згоріла адміністрація, блядь. Підараси, сука. А Соколов мер, блядь, що був тут, нахуй. Він робив смертовки по наркоті, блядь. Понятно? Курировав наркоту. Гнида єбучая, блядь. Це він, мій сусід іще, нахуй. Ну, я всегда там вивився. Прямо і прямо їде. Оце магазин добрий, тут теж сепари, блядь, оце все держать магазини. Вони зараз перебуваються різко, вони зараз вже всі люблять Україну. Сука, я кажу, блядь, дайте мені автомат зареєстрований.
ЗСУ хороший мотиватор любити Україну.
Да, починають любити. Зараз ось подивіться. Оцей сепар, як це буде любити. Ну це один, а як поїдемо до другого, якщо прийдеться їхати до нього, подивимося, як другий буде любити. А то мародер, нахуй.
По-моєму, ми просили, давай вийдемо.
Так, дивимося той, відчаємо зараз. Можна їхати чи ні?
Ще їде.
Їдь, тут небагато залишилося. Все, їдемо. От дивіться, хлопці, оце моя хата, ось, оце направо, мій дом. Оце я там в підвалі сидів, коли уїбала туди бомба. Оце слева дом, тут 44 трупа, блядь, опознаних, і 7 неопознаних, отут оця бомба в'їбала. А я в отом жив, ото я в підвалі був, я в тероборону пішов, Каже, блядь, автоматів нема, оружия нема. Прийди завтра, блядь. Може когось, каже, вб'ють нахуй. Дебіла, блядь, чи що? Ну, хто таке? Хто було це прошлое? Ми зараз живемо настоящим. Ще треба гнати і гнати їх.
Будем гнать, будем гнать.
Да.
All right, so that was the video of what Izum looks like after the Ukrainian military liberated it and after it had been under Russian occupation for about 6 months. And that is tragic. Hi, Dan. The First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska, was invited as a guest of honor to this year's State of the European Union address, which is a key event for the bloc. It is the first precedent when a representative of Ukraine is invited to the address. Hi, Truthful. Good to see you. During the 15 days of the counteroffensive, our soldiers captured more than 300 units of enemy equipment, and that's just according to the confirmed data. Most of the equipment will be repaired, repainted, and used by our armed forces. Trophies from liberated Izum, and here are the photos. You know, Russians donate the biggest amount of equipment to Ukraine, probably more than Germany and France combined. They're so generous. I mean, you know, after all, as Russians say themselves, they're a very generous and hospitable nation. So I would say really generous, really hospitable. The counteroffensive of the armed forces of Ukraine forced the Kremlin to ask for negotiations. But Kyiv refused. Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Olga Stefanushina. In recent days, Russian officials have reached out to Ukraine for negotiations, but now our country has more leverage and it will only start negotiations after it has achieved its military goals. Ukraine is not going to negotiate with Russia until our military goals are achieved, and I think that that is the best strategy there is. High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs Joseph Borrell urged the countries of the Union to double military aid to Ukraine, according to Deutsche Welle. They have achieved much more success than even we ourselves expected, and therefore the strategy we chose from the beginning is the right one. Now we need to redouble our efforts rather than hesitate. Olaf Scholz called Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, his favorite man on the planet, for the first time since mid-May and spoke with him for an hour and a half, a 90-minute phone conversation with Putin. Russia must withdraw its troops from Ukraine and recognize its sovereignty and territorial integrity. No other diplomatic solution is conceivable, said Scholz. That is very funny because Scholz's song really changed as time went on. Because before that, Scholz was saying that, you know, Ukraine should be sitting at the negotiation table with Russia and maybe seize some territory for the sake of peace. And now that Ukraine is very successful in its counteroffensive, Scholz is suddenly so supportive of Ukraine and so supportive of sending Ukraine weapons and so supportive of not negotiating with Russia. And now he's telling Putin. To, you know, just get out of Ukraine and no other solution is conceivable. And before that, I thought he was talking to Putin about, you know, the demands that Putin can put towards Ukrainians and then advising Zelensky to kind of be okay with those demands. How interesting. Oh, how the tables turn. The ability of the Russians to supply their troops in the Kherson direction has been effectively nullified, Natalia Humaniuk, head of the Joint Coordination Press Center of the South Defense Forces. She added that what the Russians load at the crossings does not reach the opposite bank, as the Ukrainian armed forces manage to hit. The Ukrainian forces wait for full loading and then they strike so as to not waste shells. President Joe Biden, commenting on the successful offensive of Ukrainian army, said that the Ukrainians have made significant progress, but there is still a long way to go. He's right, because we did liberate more than a state of Delaware worth of territory, which is Kharkiv region. But at the same time, we still have Donetsk and Luhansk, which are two that are going to be, I would say, the most difficult in terms of the counteroffensive, because while Russians have only invaded other states like Kherson And like Kharkiv 6 months ago, they have been in Luhansk and Donetsk since 2014. So their infrastructure, logistics, and ammo supplies there are much more rooted than in other places. But Donetsk and Luhansk are, the counteroffensives are there and they're advancing, and we're seeing progress, but it can't be nearly as fast as Kharkiv because it's a bit of a different situation logistically. So yeah. And we also obviously have Mariupol. We also obviously have Crimea. Russian troops shelled the Nikopol district of the Dnipropetrovsk region overnight. Residential buildings, gas pipelines, and power lines were damaged. Nearly 3,000 families were left without electricity. Some of them have already been reconnected. Power engineers continue to repair the networks. A fragment of the intercepted conversation of the Russian occupier who cries, says goodbye to his relatives, and complains that he is already tired of loading 200s during the successful counteroffensive of the armed forces of Ukraine. We have effing nothing. We cannot hold the line. They have too strong weapons. Their weapons are too strong compared to ours. This is the phone call that I reposted on Twitter the other day, and the one that I was telling you guys to watch if you're interested. So I'm going to play it on YouTube, of course, and I'm also going to play it on it's going to have English subtitles, so I'm going to play it on YouTube, and I'm also going to play it on TikTok. And I think this particular phone call is incredibly important because, and this is also not my favorite phone call yet, but there is another one that I find very, very good, and I hope that they have put English subtitles on it because, hi, Isaac, because wait, what? Yes, the video is fully loaded. Because there is another phone call that I was talking a little bit about yesterday that I really hope they put subtitles on it because it's precious. It's a phone call of a Russian soldier calling Ukraine in order to surrender. And that one was amazing. A motorcade, Isaac on Twitch is asking what's a motorcade. A motorcade is basically a guarded, one second, sorry, let me just do this and I will answer your question. A motorcade is when a president per se or like a government official travels and there is a column of cars that travels with them, and they're basically like defense and they're there for defense and security purposes. That's a motorcade. So yes, okay. Video file and a video file and
Нас немножко тут потрепали чуток. Мы, короче, сейчас откатываемся. Не знаю, короче, как там, что дальше будет. Смогу или не смогу позвонить. Тут вообще прут со всех сторон, нахуй, везде прорвали оборону, блядь. Мы позавчера ездили за 150 километров, там стреляли, там прорвали оборону, все съебывались, блядь. Пиздец, там было жестко. Балаклеевку взяли уже, все, полностью взяли. Мы не можем держать оборону. У них слишком сильное оружие по сравнению с нашими. Мы запросили поддержки авиации, нам сказали, хуй держите сами оборону, как хотите.
Суки, как в этом, блядь, в Афгане с Чечней.
Страшно, пиздец.
Страшно, зайка, страшно, я знаю. Но надо держаться.
Я заебался уже пацанов грузить.
Все, не переживай. Все будет нормально. Не раскисай.
Все болит.
А? Да, ты не раскисай, я тебе говорю, не плачь. Все.
Да нет, уже не сил, я не ровно уже. В кровище весь, блядь. У нас нету ни снарядов, ни оружия, ни хуя, блядь. Патронов осталось, блядь, у всех по магазину, блядь.
Все будет хорошо. Подвезут вам, сказали же, подвезут.
Да хуй знает, когда те самолеты долетят ли они до сюда еще. 4 летело, не долетело, блядь. Сбили, нахуй.
Yeah, Russian army is a mess and becoming more and more of a mess every day. So this is very, I also, here's something that I want to say, right? Like, I'm not necessarily the Ukrainian who would say like, oh, a good Russian is a dead Russian. That is not my motto. I think a good Russian is a Russian I don't ever have to see or hear about. But, but here's the thing. There are a lot of people who feel bad for this guy, and there are a lot of people who feel bad for him because Russia is not allowing him to go to the hospital. There are a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, poor Russians, their government won't even let them go to the hospital. They just give them painkillers and send them back to the front. Well, here's the thing. This guy wasn't complaining about the Russian government, and this guy wasn't complaining when he had to shoot Ukrainians. He wasn't complaining when he was on the front lines and they were like not winning, but they weren't suffering such huge losses. And he wasn't complaining when he was looting and stealing and when he was loading up Ukrainian bodies, right? He only is complaining now because now he's hurt. But that's what happens when you're in the military. You get hurt. And the reason why your government treats you like that is because you allow it and perpetuate it. So please spare me the feeling bad for the Russian soldier. Would I wish that upon him? No, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Do I feel bad for him, however? No. Ukraine has accepted Denmark's offer to train Ukrainian soldiers on Danish soil. The Minister of Defense of Denmark, Morten Bodskov, announced this during his visit to Kyiv. Over the past 8 years, Russia has secretly spent at least 300 million on a covert global political campaign, according to various media at this point. It is about foreign parties and politicians in more than 20 countries. Thus, the Russian Federation tried to influence political events in its interest. And that is what I was talking about earlier today. If you missed it, please rewatch the stream after it's over. It'll give you a very good idea of what this is about. And this was information originally printed by CNN, but now by media worldwide about a report that was ordered this summer by the US on Russia's interference with elections worldwide. And a senior US official has said that they found that Russia spent a lot of money to influence elections in different countries. Russia is increasingly purchasing weapons from other heavily sanctioned states, such as Iran and North Korea, as its stockpiles are depleted, according to British intelligence. Now, a lot of people are worried about that and what that means for Ukraine. North Korean weapons are older than the Russian weapons that were made in 1964. They are better maintained, but they are much older. And then weapons from Iran seem to malfunction because they don't actually have proper patented factories. They are kind of made from whatever and wherever. So they're not great either. They already have been malfunctioning. The Russian military has turned off mobile internet in the captured territories of Luhansk region, amid a counterattack by the armed forces of Ukraine in a number of areas. The head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration said Haidai reported this. He added that the Russians continued to take out the looted in the Kharkiv region property of Ukrainians. Also, so the Russian military had turned off mobile internet in the captured territories of Luhansk in order to aid security. But mobile internet is how they upkept security because those were their servers, and now these soldiers are connecting to Ukrainian satellites and Ukrainian service providers, and so that's how Ukraine is tracing all of these phone calls. So they're breaching their own security. Hi, Fabri. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that Ukraine would join the EU roaming zone. We will introduce Ukraine into our European free roaming area. It's time to do it, she said. So that means that when Ukrainian people are traveling into the EU with their Ukrainian phone numbers, with their Ukrainian providers, they're not going to be charged anymore as if they left the borders of Ukraine. So previously, let's say if you are going on a vacation from the United States to Europe, right, your phone company, your phone provider, you can buy like a plan, you can buy minutes, you can buy things in order to make your phone calls cheaper. Because if you call from your American service provider back to America or somewhere else when you're in the EU, you're going to end up paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So same was happening with Ukraine. If you went to Europe with your Ukrainian SIM card, you were charged tens, if not 20 times more than if you were to make the same phone call within the borders of Ukraine. So now EU is introducing us to their roaming zone so we can use our phones without actually having to without actually having to overpay for it, because we are going to be a part of European roaming zone, which is kind of very cool. Also, Armin over here on YouTube says this. I'm going to read it to you because he always sends very good quotes that are very, very, very situational and really fit the situation. So I really want to read them to you because I personally always enjoy them. Centuries ago, David Hume, a philosopher, wrote, "Where men are the most sure and arrogant, they are commonly the most mistaken. Men like Putin fail to give attention to this warning. Arrogance always causes ruin." And I very much agree. And thank you so much for sending me quotes, because I really do appreciate them, and I always find them very, very appropriate to the conversation. So thank you. Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in the deoccupied Izum for the ceremonial hoisting of the Ukrainian flag. Bank of America is moving some of its Russian employees to Dubai, UAE, Reuters. The United Arab Emirates, which has been deepening its ties with Russia for years, has not supported sanctions imposed by Western countries, and its central bank has yet to issue guidance on Western sanctions. The successful counterattack by the armed forces of Ukraine came as a surprise to the Russian invaders, but did not surprise the United States and its allies, Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Patrick Ryder said. He said that during the Ramstein format meeting, the allies agreed that supplies would be maintained and increased. Consequences of the nighttime shelling of Mykolaiv tonight. It is known that 2 people were unalived and 3 were wounded. An educational facility, infrastructure facilities, and residential buildings were damaged. In particular, there was a hit near the 9- and 5-story buildings. Here are the photos. Take a look. Oh, sorry. Oh. The EU sanctions against Russia will remain in force until its economy is disrupted, the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said. Putin's advisor recommended signing a peace agreement with Ukraine after the full-scale invasion began. The Russian president refused, Reuters citing sources. Now they're also asking for peace talks, and now they're also telling him to sign a peace agreement. And now they're actually asking for these peace negotiations because, well, Ukraine now has the upper hand, but they're not going to get them because, you know, when we wanted to talk about things and we wanted to do it on our terms, they refused, and they were still dictating their narrative. One of the advisors was Dmitry Kazak, Deputy Kremlin Chief of Staff. He told Putin that a peace agreement would have spared Russia the need to continue the war. But Putin made it clear that he wanted more concessions from Ukraine, and his goal was to annex Ukrainian territories. The Kremlin officially called it a lie, and Kazak declined to comment. According to Reuters, this conversation took place a few days after the invasion began. Kazak thought he had received Ukraine's consent to the main demands, but put forward by Russia, and recommended that Putin agree to a peace agreement. He never received any consent from Ukraine to any of his demands. Ukraine showed from the first days of the invasion that we are not going to lay down our arms and we are not going to give in. But a boy can dream. Russia massively cancels planned deployments of personnel to the war due to the refusal of the military to participate in combat operations in Ukraine. Main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. So this is actually great news, because not only is this happening, but people are starting to revolt against this mobilization. People are starting to state their rights, saying that because a general mobilization of the whole country has not been announced, they cannot be forced into combat when they don't want to go into it. Which is true, because general mobilization still hasn't been announced in Russia. And then another thing that's very interesting is a lot of the people on the front lines in Ukraine who are Russian are surrendering, are refusing to fight, are calling Ukrainian journalists, and are telling and are admitting to what they have done, and are calling out Russian generals seeking for their penalty. Obviously, they know that penalty is not going to happen, but they are surrendering. A lot of Russians have called the Ukrainian 1-800-SURRENDER hotline. If you are not aware, Ukraine has been dropping text messages to Russian soldiers who have connected to the Ukrainian phone network, that this is the number you can call if you want to surrender, and you are going to save your life, and you are going to guarantee a better future for yourself, and like nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to be exchanged back home. And so unless you've committed war crimes, in which case you're obviously going to go to the Hague. But a lot of Russian soldiers have been calling this hotline, and they have been asking how to surrender. And I was talking about it a little bit on the stream yesterday, because it's really funny. They call and they're like, "Hi, is this Ukraine? Hi, where do I meet you to surrender?" It's the funniest thing ever. Today, the European Parliament is blue and yellow. In this form, the State of the Union address by the head of the European Commission was expected there. This is what the European Parliament looked like today, and the dress code was blue and yellow. Oh, obrigado. How are you, Angela? Night shelling of Kramatorsk on the night of September 13th to 14th. Russia once again shelled the private sector. No casualties, but there was destruction of houses. Oleksiy Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, believes that the IAEA's visit to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant seized by the Russians did not bring the desired results. The world underestimates the nuclear terrorist threat of the Russian Federation. Yeah, the IAEA basically got there, submitted a report that things are not going very well, left 2 employees there, and then kind of stopped talking about it, really. And the world was just like, well, the IAEA visited, so there is nothing to worry about. Well, it is still a nuclear power plant, and Russians are still shelling it. So it is still in critical danger. And also, the nuclear power plant was forced to be put to sleep by Ukrainians, to its cool state, because that's the only state in which we consider it to be the safest, but that cut off a lot of Ukrainian households in a lot of Ukrainian regions from electricity. So things are not going well, and the world should not be silent about it. It is still a major issue, and if you don't care about Ukrainians whose electricity was cut off and you care only about your safety, then your safety is still compromised, because Russians are still shelling a nuclear power plant. The EU wants to cut funding to Hungary. The official reason is corruption in the government of Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The unofficial reason is the close and ardent relationship between Orban and Putin. Hungary has become the first European Union country to be investigated under the new rules. They allow the punishment of EU countries that undermine the financial interests of the bloc. A special commission has been examining Orban's activities while in power for several months. So as I was saying earlier, European Union is going to take a lot more measures in order to guarantee that the European Union states are not going to be electing far-right leaders. The European Union is, by its definition, a union of the democratic European states. So if the far-right government is present in those states, then that is not a democracy anymore, right? Because far-right fascist governments are not guaranteeing democracy. And so the European Union used to have this precedent that when you joined, you're there forever. Nothing can happen to you. And recently, they've started really rethinking their rules, and they started really taking it seriously, especially with the wave of a far-right leadership becoming popular in European nations. So I think for all of those of you who were saying, oh, you know, but now Europe is going to get like a lot of far-right leaders and things might change. Well, Europe is going to try and prevent that as much as they can. As we are seeing with Hungary, they're starting to introduce punishments. They're starting to introduce, they quite actually were calling for removal of Hungary from the European Union because Hungary does not stand for European ideals anymore, and Hungary does not qualify for European Union. Basically, if you were to take Hungary right now and they were not a member of European Union and they would apply, they would be rejected. And so the argument is that somebody who would be rejected had they applied today should not be in the union just because they had gotten in beforehand. And things change a lot. And so I know, and Europe is obviously seeing that there is an increase in far-right government initiatives and stuff like that. And they're going to do everything to prevent it because they are not going to let that slide. And we are seeing that with their actions. So now they're cutting budget for Hungary to punish them. Now there is Italian elections that are coming up, and most likely that is why they're doing it, because they've seen it with France, where there was a slim margin under which Macron won from a far-right leader, Marine Le Pen, who was openly pro-Russian. Now there is Italy, who also has quite a fascist party over there running for the elections, and they're probably issuing them a warning by, punishing Hungary. And also, now that it came out that Russia has been financing specific parties in different countries in order to turn elections in the favor of Russia, European Union is really going to crack down on what is happening in the European Union, because they are not going to allow this to go any further. And to be fair, at first I was scared that they might, and they might just do nothing, and inaction is going to lead to worse things, but they're stepping up, and they're stepping up fast, because they're not okay with that happening. 3.1 million tons of grain have already been exported from Ukrainian ports, Ministry of Infrastructure. Map with the percentage shares of the occupied territories of Ukraine by region. Russians still hold 4% of the Mykolaiv region, 88% of the Kherson region, 67% of the Zaporizhia region, 57% of the Donetsk region, and 99% of the Luhansk region, as well as 100% of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. The Armed Forces of Ukraine has established fire control over almost the entire Kherson region. Hi, Colin. Good to see you. Representative of the Operational Command South. Our military continues to advance, pushing the Russian invaders back. Today, the Russian invaders launched a series of missile attacks on Kryvyi Rih, Dnipropetrovsk region. Information about casualties and destruction is yet to be distinguished. So actually, a dam was damaged, and it's now flooding Kryvyi Rih because of the Russian shells. So that is becoming a large issue, because Kryvyi Rih is being increasingly and severely flooded. Ceremonial rising of the Ukrainian flag in the deoccupied Izum, and also more on that later. But here's the ceremonial rising of the Ukrainian flag in Izum, and Zelensky was present at it, and he gave a speech, and that speech to me was incredibly inspiring. And I don't know if he's going to speak at the end of this, but I'm going to tell you one of the key things. Thank you, Di. But one of the key things that I personally really liked about his speech. So in his speech, he said, as Ukrainians, we used to look up and look for the sky and look for the sun. And I think now every Ukrainian person looks up and looks for a Ukrainian flag, the blue and yellow, because that means that our defenders are near, and that means they're safe. And that means they're taken care of by Ukraine. And I thought that was an incredible speech. Well, there was a lot more to it, but that part of the speech really resonated with me, because yes, that's precisely what Ukrainians are doing, especially in recently deoccupied or occupied territories, is they're looking for Ukrainian flags, because that means that they are safe. Hey, I'm Sapu. Russian invaders showed the heroic destruction of a barge with the landing of the armed forces of Ukraine in the Zaporizhia region, but there is a nuance. The barge, which the Russians allegedly blew up near Kamyanka-Dniprovska, turned out to be the concrete support of the bridge built by the Yazidis in 1943. In February 1944, the Germans themselves destroyed the bridge. All these years, only one support remained from it, with which the Russian invaders fought in 2022. So they thought that they ruined a barge. So Russians thought that they ruined a barge. They actually ruined a piece of the last standing piece of a Yazid bridge. I mean, thanks. We were going to do that and spend money on doing that, but you did that instead. Hi, Glenn. Thanks. That saved us a lot of money. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that in the deoccupied territories, fortifications are being improved and fortifications are being created to protect against recapture. This week, Germany handed over 4 more Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft guns and 65 refrigerators for medication for Ukraine. Minister of Health of Ukraine, Viktor Leshko, became a member of the WHO Executive Committee, and his first deputy, Alexander Komorida, became a member of the Standing Committee of the WHO European Committee, the Ukrainian embassy in Israel reported. It should be noted that for the first time in history, Ukraine was elected to the executive board, the governing body of WHO, which is recognition of the contribution of our country to the activities of this international organization. In addition, the active participation of our state in the organization is of particular importance in the face of today's unprecedented challenges, primarily the pandemic and the humanitarian consequences of Russian aggression against Ukraine, the embassy noted. The government has a plan on how to negotiate accession to the EU in 2 years. Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. Hi, Nico. Usually such negotiations last 5, 7, 8 years. Our goal is to do it much faster, in 2 years. And it looks like, based on what the European Union has been saying, a lot of heads of the European Union were saying, well, Ukraine should be accepted much faster than normal because Ukraine has been doing what we stand for, fighting for democracy, not only for itself, but also for all of us. So they should be the exception to the rules. And it looks like they're pretty lenient and leaning towards giving us the accession to EU in 1 to 2 years. The European Commission will allocate 100 million euros for the reconstruction of 74 Ukrainian schools as part of the Rapid Recovery Plan. Broken railway tracks covered with rubble, many mines and exploded shells. The chairman of the board of Ukrzaliznytsia, Ukrainian Railway, Alexander Kamyshin, shows how the Russian invaders vandalized the railway during occupation. This is what awaits every occupier who dares to invade Ukrainian land. The spirit of Ukraine is indestructible. Austria will build 3 medical facilities in Ukraine. The projects will cost 600 million euros. So as I was saying, there's going to be a lot of investments into Ukraine from foreign countries. There's going to be a lot of investments into Ukraine from the EU, because building something like a hospital, like a school, like a hotel, like apartment complexes, that is a lot of money. So it's not only like a gesture of helping out, it is also a gesture of bringing back to your own economy, because people are going to be buying these apartments. You know, people are going to be making money in that hospital. So there is an aspect of that, and a lot of countries are like fighting which regions of Ukraine they will be reconstructing, because it's a money basket, unfortunately. Deputy head of the office of the president, Kirill Tymoshenko, specified that the Russians fired 8 missiles at Kryvyi Rih. Russian troops sent the maximum amount of their weapons to the hydraulic structures. The goal is obvious, an attempt to create an emergency, Tymoshenko wrote. All services are already eliminating the consequences of missile strikes, and the military administration is coordinating work on the spot. Take a look of what Kryvyi Rih region looks like right now. Kryvyi Rih is where Zelensky is from. As I said, there was a dam that was blown up, and Kryvyi Rih right now is being incredibly, incessantly flooded. And Kryvyi Rih is the region where Zelensky is from. Kryvyi Rih is his native city. The U.S. actively involved in discussing the possibilities of transporting Kazakh oil through the Caspian Sea to world markets, bypassing Russia and the bypassing Russia, according to the US State Department. So here's something that I said in the beginning of this whole, oh, thank you, Natlin. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I love your new profile picture. I love how Yi is divided. So first of all, one of the things that I wanted to say is in the beginning of this entire shenanigan with the Kazakh president standing up to Putin, I was saying that there has to be a reason why. And he's not just doing it. It's either a show or there is a reason why, because Kazakhstan's trade is very, very connected to Russia. And here is the reason why. Let me reread this for you. Oh, I did. I'm so sorry, Truthful. Thank you. I was reading. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Even if I missed them, I do appreciate them a lot. Thank you. The US is actively involved in discussing the possibilities of transporting Kazakh oil through the Caspian Sea to world markets. So this is what Kazakhstan wanted all along. Basically, they saw an opportunity and they seized it. They were like, oh, we depend on Russia for this, this, and this. But that brings less money than the money we would get had we been transferring oil to other countries. So we're just gonna... And that is, ladies and gentlemen, kind of brilliant, but also kind of sneaky. And, but that's, yeah, they were like, you know what? Russia or money? Money. A group of creditor countries has postponed the payment of Ukraine's debt until the end of 2023, according to the website of the US Treasury. Now, let me see what's going on Kyiv Independent, because Kyiv Independent usually has some really good updates, and I usually read them out. Launching there on September 6th. Okay, let me see what came out today. Okay. Institute for the Study of War. Kremlin acknowledges defeat for the first time since the beginning of the war. Russian officials and media propagandists are currently discussing the reasons for Russia's defeat in Kharkiv Oblast, the Institute for the Study of War wrote in its last update. Originally, the Russian Defense Ministry explained the Russian defeat in Kharkiv Oblast similarly to the gesture of goodwill of its withdrawal from Snake Island, or to the decision to prioritize the liberation of Donbass following its defeat around Kyiv. However, the ISW writes that this time the false narrative was met with significant online criticism. The US think tank also said Kremlin sources are now working to clear Putin of any responsibility for the defeat and are trying to put the blame on underinformed military advisors within Putin's circle. Hi, Rue. Mayor, Russian forces heavily shell Mykolaiv overnight. Mykolaiv Mayor Alexander Sienkiewicz reported early on September 14th that heavy Russian shelling of the city of Mykolaiv overnight damaged residential buildings. Russia shelled Nikopol region and Dnipropetrovsk Oblast overnight. So these are quick facts and also kind of a catch-up, because a lot of them are similar to what we have talked about earlier. So it'll give you an idea of what the conversation was about today if you just joined. UK intelligence says Russia has likely deployed Iranian drones in Ukraine for the first time. It is not likely they have, because we have photo evidence of Iranian drones on our soil. In its latest intelligence update, the UK Defense Ministry said that on September 13th, Ukraine reported its forces had shot down an Iranian Shahed 136 UAV near Kupiansk, Kharkiv Oblast, during Ukraine's successful counteroffensive in the area. Russia is almost certainly increasing sourcing weaponry from other heavily sanctioned states like Iran and North Korea as its own stocks dwindled, the ministry wrote. Also, I don't know what's going on my Twitter, but my Twitter notifications are blowing up, and Twitter is my least developed platform, although as in like I put probably the most amount of effort into it. Well, that's a lie. I think TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter are where I put the most effort into. And I recently launched a thing where I repost my important tweets on Instagram stories for those of you who don't have a Twitter. But my Twitter has been blowing up in the last like 10 minutes. I've gotten, I don't even know how many notifications. So I'm very interested in what is happening over there. But yes, I do pay a lot of attention to Twitter because I do repost a lot of stuff, but I started really doing that recently in order to provide you like a 24-hour flow of information. So it's very interesting because I wonder if somebody reposted my tweet or something, because my notifications are quite literally blowing up, and that's very strange. Mobile internet cut off in Russian-occupied Luhansk Oblast. General Staff, Ukraine's military repels 8 Russian attacks in the past 24 hours. The White House, U.S. may provide Ukraine with additional security assistance package in coming days. Governor of Donetsk Oblast, 5 civilians were unalived, 16 were wounded in the past 24 hours. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to visit Kyiv again. President Zelensky visited liberated Izum, Kharkiv Oblast. We are moving in one direction, towards victory, he said. Ukraine's armed forces have liberated over 300 settlements since launching their counteroffensive in Kharkiv Oblast on September 6th. IAEA mission to Zaporizhia failed to bring desired results. Over 3.1 million tons of agricultural products have left Ukraine through Black Sea since August. Nearly 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers have completed training in the UK. Luhansk Oblast governor, Russian troops return to occupied Kreminna. Serhiy Haidai said on September 14th that Russian forces are creating an impression of their mass presence in the town while shutting down the internet connection on occupied territories to prevent information exchange. A day earlier, on September 13th, Haidai reported that Kreminna was completely empty from the Russian army, but the Ukrainian army has not entered yet. The city lies only 25 kilometers northwest of Severodonetsk, which Russian forces occupied in June, but Ukraine has liberated. Ukrinform, Ursula von der Leyen urges EU to expand sanctions against Russia. This is the time for us to show resolve now, not appeasement, von der Leyen said in her annual State of the Union address. Zelensky said Balaklia, Izum resemble Bucha. The view is very shocking, but it is not shocking for me because we began to see the same pictures from Bucha, from the first de-occupied territories, the same destroyed buildings, unalived people, President Volodymyr Zelensky said during his visit to the recently liberated Izum. The cities of Izum and Balaklia and Kharkiv Oblast were liberated by the armed forces last week during the country's lighting counter-offensive. So that's what I was saying. The dark side of all of us being super happy about all of these counteroffensives being incredibly fruitful is that there is going to be a lot of atrocities coming out from these places. And now that Zelensky has said that, we're about to see a shockwave of photos from these places with a lot of atrocities committed. And there is a lot of videos of residents from formerly occupied Kharkiv towns talking about it, surfacing on Twitter. And it is really, really, really bad. Ukraine established fire control over most of Kherson Oblast. Russia hits Kryvyi Rih with missiles. Ukraine considers abolishing mandatory military service, Shmyhal says. During a press conference, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that the current situation has shown that men should undergo 2-3 months long preparatory courses every 10 years instead of spending 2 years learning how to march. In my view, the Soviet model of conscription should be abolished, he said, adding that the government is in talks with the military concerning this issue. Prime Minister, Ukraine to construct fortifications on liberated territories. Reuters, Putin rejected peace deal with Ukraine recommended by his aide. Germany delivers 4 more Gepards. Russia hits Zaporizhia's outskirts with 2 missiles. That is near the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Oh, thank you. But this is black. But thank you so much, Netlin. Andriy Zahorodnik, how Ukraine's counteroffensive will affect Russia's army, future of the war. How will Ukraine's successful counteroffensive in the Kharkiv Oblast change the course of the war? Read the analysis by ex-defense minister Andriy Zahorodnik to find out. This is the newest article on KyiVindependent.com. If you're interested, please read it. Armenia calls on Russian-led military bloc to intervene against Azerbaijan. Russian-led military bloc is CSTO, and it's basically Russia's version of NATO. Russia hits hydraulic facilities in Kryvyi Rih with missiles. Dnipropetrovsk Oblast Governor Valentin Reznichenko said that the Russians had hit the facilities with Kh-22 missiles. As a result, several districts of Kryvyi Rih were left without water, and it is currently being flooded. Oh, hi, Gareth. Thank you so much. So glad to see you here. I'm very glad that you've discovered my channel, and I'm happy that they're helpful to you. Welcome. Okay, so those are all of the updates that I have for today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and let's do our unwinding session where we do 10 to 15 minutes of questions. I think mostly 10. Recently, my streams have gone from an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and there are certain things that I need to do, before it gets too dark and too late. So without further ado, what's on your mind, guys? What can I answer for you, if anything? Isn't that counterproductive? Sevastopol is dependent on water from the north. Russians are not thinking about counterproductive, and they're not thinking about, so Forrest over here is asking, isn't like blowing up the dam counterproductive because Sevastopol, which is the biggest city in Crimea, is dependent on water from the north? Yes, but also Ukraine isn't necessarily supplying water to Crimea anymore because Crimea has been occupied, and it's Russia's business to do that, and Kryvyi Rih is not occupied by Russia. So Kryvyi Rih virtually carries nothing. Kryvyi Rih virtually carries no use for Russia at the moment, unless they're thinking of occupying it in the future and that way. But also, Russia doesn't necessarily care about the future, and Russia doesn't necessarily care about the citizens and the water they're receiving. They care about making a point. Hi, Alyona. What's that word you say at times? I think it's привіт. Привіт is hi in Ukrainian. Odessa is a resort city. Yes, think of Odessa as the Los Angeles of Ukraine. Odessa is like a very fun kind of, it's not necessarily, no, actually, I wouldn't call it a resort city. Think of it as LA, like it's a big, big, big city. It's not a resort town. It's a huge city. There is a lot happening there. It has a lot of culture. It has a lot of history. In fact, UNESCO, we have applied for UNESCO to recognize the entirety of Odessa as a heritage site in Ukraine. Thank you, Mariana. And as a UNESCO heritage site, and Odessa is a big, big, big hub, and it also is on the sea. So it is kind of like Los Angeles. It's a fun place. People go there to party. People go there on vacation. People live there. There is a lot of business happening. Odessa is kind of like Los Angeles. Wasn't Odessa where the Soviet elite used to vacation? Yes, and Crimea. Possible coup on Russia. I think possible coup on Russia is as likely right now as the whole story about Putin having deadly cancer. So I wouldn't go that far yet. There is probably going to be a lot of people who are going to try to take him out, but I don't think there is going to be a coup yet, at least, or not for a while. I am Los Angeles. You're from Los Angeles. Okay, so Jen said, what Theo typed out, Azerbaijan attacked an area with the FSB, the Russian personnel withdrew. Yeah. Hi, sweet destruction. From its Russian personnel have been unalived by Azerbaijan. Oh, I see. Also, what happened with... Я не думаю, что русские надолго вас оставят в покое. Ну, Алена, я не думаю, что мне важно, что вы думаете по этому поводу, особенно если вы русский человек. У русских не будет выбора, оставить нас в покое надолго или не оставить, потому что, как вы видите, Россия не имеет никакой возможности держать никого и не имеет никакой величи, о которой она так классно любит разговаривать. Может, если бы Россия использовала больше денег на то, чтобы таки быть великой и сильной державой, это было бы возможно. А так она использует деньги для того, чтобы казаться великой и сильной державой. Поэтому я не думаю, что Россия... Я не думаю, что мне интересно думать, что Россия хочет делать. Россия попробовала нас взять уже несколько раз, и что из этого получилось? Out of curiosity, do Ukrainians understand a bit of Polish language? Yes, Ukrainians in the West understand a lot of Polish language because we live near a Polish border. I don't know, I think that Ukrainians in the east of Ukraine probably understand less because I speak Polish, right? Most of my friends and family speak Polish because we live close to the Polish border. We go to Poland often. It's like a 2-hour trip, to the closest big city in Poland. And so we speak Polish, but a lot of Ukrainians understand Polish. Probably don't speak it very well, but understand a lot of it. Also, what happened with Putin's motorcade? Allegedly, it was attacked with bombs. I will send it to you later. What specifically? An article? So someone on YouTube in Russian is asking, where is this stream coming from? Ukraine or the US? The US. I am Ukrainian. My family lives in Ukraine. I was born and raised in Ukraine. And this stream is happening from the US because I have lived in the United States for the past 11 years. Okay. Yeah, the best double CIA agent. I've seen that meme too, Joe. Joe says, seen a meme calling Pudding the best CIA double agent because he basically expanded NATO, ruined Russia, weakened Russia, basically all of the goals that you would think CIA has. But yeah. Putin's master plan about destroying Russian military, it made me LOL, yeah. What else? There was something else. There was another question, and now I don't know. Guys, there is a Russian troll, ABEE. Well, they're not a Russian troll. They're not a Russian bot. They're a bot probably hired by Russia. Yeah, I am on YouTube and on Twitch and on Twitter, bartender. But they Google translated something into Russian and think that makes sense. It doesn't. I mean, I see what they're saying, but Google Translate is really bad. Abby. So, good luck with that. Anyways, okay. So I say that this is probably it for today. The questions have slowed down. And I would say I will see you guys later because I need to run and do some things before I'm a citizen of Ukraine. But so if you want to have a constant flow of retweets and information and some of my thoughts and me arguing with ignorant people on Twitter, please follow me on Twitter. It's the same as everywhere. Rule of thumb is if you want to find me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, or YouTube, you can find me easily by just typing in Yulia. And then if you would like to support my efforts to bring you information, I do have a Patreon. Subscription obviously is not required, nor is it begged for, but is encouraged if you can, because every $10 counts a lot and helps me be here as much as I can, delivering you information daily. And my Patreon is Spy News Network INTL, or International. So if you would like to subscribe, please do so. And on Patreon, you get benefits such as finding out information before everybody else, like I am doing the Azov soldier interview tomorrow, and I will post some of his responses before they air on YouTube or TikTok. I will post them in a written format on Patreon, and we will be voting on who to interview next. You will also get some recipes from my grandmother's bakery, and you will also be getting loads of photos of Cine, as well as some merchandise after 3 months of consecutive subscription, and a lot more stuff. But I am trying to take a lot more control of Patreon and bring you a lot more information and give you a lot more control of it too. So if you would like to, please subscribe. And also don't forget to like this stream. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed on whichever platform you are watching, because, well, here's the thing, engagement and following does not necessarily matter to me, right? But what does matter to me for personal gain, basically, but engagement and following and all this stuff does matter to me a lot in terms of talking about Ukraine, because the more followers, the more engagement I have, the more my videos get pushed towards wider audiences, and that means that the more people find out real truth about Ukraine, and I hope that I can be a part of bringing you guys more understanding. Hi, nice to meet you too. More understanding about the situation, more clarity about the situation, and I hope that my analysis and my observations and also the news that I pick to talk about are helpful to you. And I'm really hoping that I'm bringing something valuable to you guys, and I really hope that you can use it. You know, so thank you very much for watching and listening and learning and keeping up and being there for Ukraine and standing with my country and helping us achieve victory. Also, thank you for being here with me, because without you, this platform wouldn't exist. And I firmly believe that you guys are the founding stone of everything that is happening here. And if there weren't any you, there basically would not be any news, because nobody would be watching them. So you guys are the main artery of my channel. And I also, someone asked me for CineCam. If you don't know what Cine is a little pig gremlin that I own, and it is very patriotic. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get it a treat, and I'm gonna show you what Cine can do, and that is gonna be our goodbye. Hey. Oh, who is so interested in this? Okay, come here, sit. No, come on. Okay, I will take the iPad away. I get it. Okay, come here, sit. No, not lay. Cine, sit. Come on, sit. Okay. Слава Україні. Слава нації. Пиздець Російській Федерації. Good job. He is more educated than some Russian adults. Hi, Tongwai. Alrighty. Thank you, guys. I will see you later today, and then I will also see you tomorrow. For those of you who are not going to be around later today, probably around 10 p.m. Eastern. Bye. Bye, guys.